John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, Greek logos. If this was Aramaic, it would be memra. My friends who are scholars of the book of John and scholars in the Greek language have said to me that the best way to convey what the Greek says in that last clause is what God was, the Word was. Now, this Word is an expression of God. The Word comes forth. The Word is spoken. You find out who people are by the words that they speak. God creates the universe through His words. Sometimes the Word is spoken of in a personified way. Isaiah 55, the Word that comes forth from God's mouth goes on a circuit, and it returns to Him having accomplished its mission. The Word of the Lord bearing the characteristics of God, the nature of God, the expression of God, something that comes forth from Him. In the Aramaic tradition, this became known as the memra, which was part of God's self-expression in the rabbinic literature called the Targums. So this word, verse 14, became flesh. It doesn't say God became flesh. You see, it's very nuanced.
Yes, the Word of God is never a separate, distinct second person apart from the one God, the Father, that is Yahweh, any more than your Word. So Michael Brown has been rather consistent in this view. And in that video, he goes on to cite Psalm 107, Yahweh sent His word. Isaiah 55, my word that comes from my mouth. And another Psalm 147, His word runs swiftly. So these are all what Dr. Brown himself calls personifications of the Word of God. A personification is not a person, obviously. So he's been very consistent, as I said, even in his books like his multi-volume work, Jewish Objections to Jesus. In Genesis 1, the emphasis is on God's spoken word as an extension of His nature, an expression of His will. The most common Hebrew expression for word is davar, which can mean word, thing, matter, affair. The memra or logos, an extension of the Lord Himself, in one sense God and in another sense with God, came down among us. Exactly right. This is the normal Jewish view that is taught in the New Testament as well, and that obviously should be read in the prologue of John because that was his background. That's what he knew. There was no other worldview for the writer of John. So facts to remember. English translations from the Greek before the King James have it instead of he. So when you check these versions, you'll see, for example, verse 3, all things were made by it. And there are other qualities said to be with God throughout the Hebrew scriptures. Isaiah 40, with His arm, His reward. Also see Isaiah 62, verse 11. The book of Job, chapter 12, with wisdom, with might. Compare verse 16 in the same chapter. The famous Proverbs 8, where Lady Wisdom is said to be with prudence. Again, one quality of Yahweh, the one God of Israel, said to be with another of His qualities. Again, this is a Hebraic, very Hebraic way of speaking, which Michael Brown is very familiar with, it seems. Another fact to remember, the pronoun him was first introduced by the Roman Catholic version of 1582 and later adopted by the King James. The first translations from the Greek into English not always have a capital W on word. So if you check the early translations of the English, you have the Tyndale 1534 all the way to 1607, probably find in the beginning was the word lowercase w. Why? Because these early translators of the Greek New Testament full well understood that they were not looking at a second separate distinct person apart from the one God the Father, Yahweh. Modern-day evangelicals, translators, fully understand this. The divine word and wisdom was there with God, and it was what God was. The Amplified Bible and others, the word was God Himself, and the New English Bible, what God was, the word was, and this is exactly what Michael Brown was alluding to. Greek experts, translators, many evangelical scholars are fully aware of these grammatical facts of the New Testament Greek and the Hebrew scriptures.
Shekhinah is the presence of God on earth. This would be the equivalent to the Greek in John 1:14. the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, pitched his tent among us, tabernacled among us, a similar kind of concept there. How does God tabernacle among us? Is the Shekhinah God? Well, yes and no. Manifestation of God, divine presence, yes. Separate entity from God, no. Just like the Son.